welcome everyone. This is our second meetup session for the Montreal meetup. So welcome everyone. For those of you that are relatively new to this session, today we are going to cover a architecture review of Camunda 8 and then give you kind of a perspective to run a process from zero to a full executable process in Camunda 8. So we hope that the session will be informative and useful as you continue to explore Camunda 8 in the future. Next slide. All right. So in the agenda today, we always like to start our meetup with a small networking session, simply for us to get to know each other, where we're coming from, what we're working on, and potentially build a relationship that way. And then we're going to do a deep dive into the subject of today, which is the architectural round trip of C8. And then we'll be having a Q&A. So as you can see, there are two topics. One is the architecture review of C8. And also we are going to review a process from start to finish in Camunda 8. So in between the two sessions, we will be having a Q&A. So for today's purpose, we're not using Slido. All of your questions are going to be welcomed directly into the chat box, and we are going to interact that way. And then the last topic of today's agenda is simply updates, and then, set up our next session, potentially in the fall. Next slide. All right, so since we are a relatively small group, I believe we can maybe just all of us stay here and share on the topic of what is the latest BPMN project that you've worked on. So I may want to pick on Florent and Olivier A that are currently in a room in Montreal working. We're kind of curious to find out what it is that you're working on. What's your latest project that you're working on?
I'll let Olivier explain because I'm fairly new to the project. So
and be mindful, we're really, this is just for networking purpose. We're just using you as an example, since you mentioned that you were locked up in a room working on Camunda, and we're just curious to see what you're working on. So only feel free to share information that you feel could benefit the group, and keep everything confidential. We don't need
I work in SGL at the moment, so we're using Camunda to work with workflows, and currently we're using version 7, if I'm correct. So the purpose of us being here, in my understanding, is to know what is coming up, what are the next things, and if we are to do some enhancement on our side, some new developments, to take into account what's coming, so that we can adapt more easily in the future.
All right. And so you have not been exposed, you've read material on Camunda 8, but you have actually not seen it. You have not explored it in detail. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And so
I participated into the Camunda activity, the conference. So I had a bit of the view, and I also looked a bit at ZB. But this was more in here to share about the new architecture. It's been 3 years that we work with Camunda 7 to provide BPMN usage inside the bank for society.
Okay, good to know. Okay. Anyone else who wants to share? I can know Felix. We may skip on you because we're relatively familiar with who you work with and what you're working on, unless you want to share anything.
Well, I work at the National Bank in Montreal, currently supporting a few projects, but one specifically where we're doing essentially processing and transformation of payment files, like payment instructions that we're receiving that we have to process, and there are lots of business rules to apply and so on. And so Camunda was chosen to sort of keep track of all of those business rules and so on. So kind of using that to ramp up my knowledge on Camunda myself.
Right. All right. And so, yeah, coming from your side, we know you're quite knowledgeable to begin with on Camunda. So on a session like this, I know I'm taking a little bit of time. Maria will be going to be moving on soon. This is a question for both Felix, Olivier, and Florent. Is there anything in particular that you would like to kind of double down on today as far as knowledge goes? Are there a specific topic that kind of puzzled you in C8 that you feel you need more explanation or more just get a better understanding, so that Thomas can kind of double down on these topics as he goes through his material? Are there anything that stands out for you in particular? No?
For us, it will be really the change the architecture. So coming from a single engine whereas the task list is integrated, and see how it goes. Right now we're running with the community edition.
Yeah.
So with DB, I know that it's start to be more about external tasks that we are not currently using. We are trying to move to it, but it's not done yet. So for us, it would be interesting to know what are the parts that changing a bit in Camunda 8 and how they are handled. Like I think the task list is moving to enterprise license. So it have to be seen how it integrates with DB, how you provide maybe some side. But I think the global points shown for the meetings was good. So
that's good. All right. Okay. Perfect. So Thomas, I know there is a lot to cover. We're still away from the whole, I heard licensing and the difference community versus enterprise, but I'll let you take it away from here. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing. Thomas, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm a bit in a weird situation. So first of all, disclaimer right here. So currently I'm at KubeCon in Spain. I just want to let you know that I'm now going to take this call from the conference center because I do have very weird internet problems in Spain. So that's the only place where I do have some kind of stable connections. So in case anything happens, we got you covered. We got some backup plans. But yeah, I will try my best to make this experience a bit of fun for y'all, and yeah, to show you some content about Camunda 8 and what's new there. Starting off in our first part, we are going to talk about the actual architecture, as you've already mentioned. That's for sure a very interesting part, and I'm also going to make a differentiation about what's really the difference between Camunda 7 and Camunda 8, especially since most of you have really the experience with Camunda 7 already. So yeah, let's chat about that architecture. Let's chat about these technical concepts used in here. And just to give you some information about myself, I'm a developer advocate here at Camunda. So I do have the possibility and the honor to play around with the product, make cool projects, and be the geek I always wanted to be. Feel free to reach out, connect via LinkedIn or Twitter. And if you do have any further questions which are not answered in today's session, feel free to reach out and we can meet up and discuss things. I'm always happy to do this, to get familiar with your use cases and try to help wherever I can. So yeah, what will you actually learn during today's session? So in that part, there are three things I want to discuss with you. And first of all, of course, what's contained in Camunda 8 and how does this differ from Camunda 7? And then we will really go to the technical foundations of ZB and take a look on how the workflow engine is architecturally structured, how our SaaS offering looks from architectural point of view, and how ZB itself works and why this is scalable and error-prone or failure-proof. Having done so, the last bullet point on the list is to really go over the API interfaces Camunda 8 provides, because this has changed for sure in the version, because we do not have this this one REST API anymore, because we now use gRPC, GraphQL, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of things to discover. But yeah, let's dive deep into the content and start off with what's contained actually in Camunda 8. To understand where we are heading, I wanted to just set the scene and open up this picture once again, which kind of describes the Camunda vision, orchestrate any endpoint everywhere. And of course, yeah, we want to somehow manage to orchestrate human workers, AI components, microservices, which is very common, or RPA bots, IoT devices, so on and so forth. And of course, we want to enable the user of the tool to really code and deploy in their preferred language and with their preferred tooling. So that's also a very important thing for us. And Camunda 7, I mean, there have been users in .NET, for instance, but the majority of people using Camunda 7 has been Java developers. And with the shift to Camunda 8, we also try to loosen this up a bit to really be language agnostic. And have polyglot clients there. And we'll see a bit more or talk a bit more about this later on in more detail. Yeah, last but not least, run the tool on every platform or on all your preferred platforms. So Kubernetes or still Docker images are available, and you could run it via Helm also on your own premises without needing to rely on another cloud provider. Great. So what tools are now included in the Camunda 8? So first of all, once again, I guess all of you are familiar with such a picture. We tend to structure all of our products into those 3 stacks, which perfectly align with the BPM lifecycle. So first of all, there's the design stack, then the automation stack, and then the improvement stack. So the design stack now continues a web modeler, a new modeler, which is similar to Covimo, but now also contains the technical property panel. So it now is possible to, as a developer, work together with a team and also change those technical properties right away in the modeler, and still having all these nice milestone features and the collaborative aspects, so on and so forth. Another additional new things are the connectors and the integration frameworks. So talking about connectors, we do have 2 currently available, the REST one, so we can call REST APIs, and a Centric one to easily send emails out. There are a lot of more coming. We have stuff planned there, but we also want to enable our users to develop some own integrations, some own connectors. That's what the integration framework there is all about. And last but not least, we're also trying to continue our efforts for these forms, which make it way easier to build these kind of task list UIs. Great. So that's what have basically changed, or what has been added to the modeler itself, to the design package. And to continue, we now also take a look on the automation package, where we do have a new cloud native workflow engine, which is basically powered by ZB, which is basically ZB. And just to have mentioned it, this workflow engine is still like an open source one. You can use it for free, and that's still also a place where you can contribute code to, or when you want to stay community customer or community use a community edition, you can always rely on that engine and build your things around of that. The same does apply to the decision engine in particular as well. What's now in the enterprise package is task list and operate. So both of these tools, if you want to use them in production, it will always need some kind of license agreement, right? So task list stays the tool for the clerk to work into, simply work on user tasks, or to display some information in these tasks. Whereas operate is kind of the pendant to what cockpit is. So it's a tool for real-time visibility, which helps you monitor simply the processes you have deployed there. So whenever there's some kind of process operator, they make sure that the life cycle of the process instances are actually up and running. So having said so, there's only optimize, which basically stays the same. It's now also integrated into this whole environment. And you can smoothly run analysis on your processes with that one, right? Cool. So taking a look on the real comparison, and from that on we can also like show off some benefits. So Camunda Platform 8, right, has some distributed ZB brokers which do export data to Elasticsearch, and that is then consumed by optimized task list and operate. So that's kind of the structure. Whereas in Camunda, or Camunda Platform Run in particular, we always had the Camunda engine which needed to rely on a relational database. And since processes tend to be highly transactional, the database is really the crucial bottleneck, or has always been. Especially when you do have high transaction volumes, the database will be limited at a certain point in time, or then you need to apply some application level sharding, so on and so forth, to keep Camunda platform up and running and performant. We try to tackle that problem in Camunda 8 by not having a relational database and not having transactions, which is quite nice to have. And now we do have some linear scalability by doing so, right? Besides, of course, one very important separation is that also we don't have like the possibility to use an embedded engine anymore, since we purely have the remote one provided by Camunda 8. So that's also a kind of important difference. And you've mentioned that that some of you haven't used the external task pattern before, and that's some kind of important information, because for sure this would then involve some restructuring of code to make it as available as some external task. Might not be that much work to do, but it's for sure some kind of refactoring effort which needs to be taken into account, since simply the engine can't be embedded. Great. So as you can see, instead of cockpit and task list, we do have operate and the task list right here, and optimize is also right away integrated to Elasticsearch. Still, if you don't want to use the web modeler and the form builder, there's a desktop modeler and the form builder also available. So these tools do, or this kind of tool bridges the gap between Camunda 8 and 7, kind of. Cool. I hope that for you, some similarities and some differences are now a bit more clearer in terms of how they differ. And just to show you a nice other, Felix has a question. That's great. Shoot.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. Sorry, I was just wondering, do we have to provision our own Elasticsearch database? I see here it's kind of inside the Camunda 8 cluster, or Camunda 8 does that for you. More specifically, in the if we were to run Camunda 8 on premise, for example.
Good question. So if you would run this on premise, we do have Helm charts available, and these Helm chart would then spin up a simply an Elasticsearch database for you.
Okay, so it's taken care of essentially.
Wait a minute. Exactly. So the Helm charts are spinning up that kind of database for you. Exactly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay, great.
Well, that's it. Sorry. For the task list, so the task list is separated. Is it just the part of the UI, the designing, or it's also like the user task that is not necessarily there anymore, or which is separated, or?
So it's only the taskless application which is used to work on user tasks. You can still work on these user tasks through API commands, for instance.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. Great. So let me quickly continue to the next slide, because there we do have got some more information about the performance. So there are some nice fancy graphs, and you can see that the relational database was usually the bottleneck, and now we've really gained some linear scalability there, which is of course kind of a big thing, right? To have this possibility. Okay, so now we are going to take a more in-depth look into the architecture. So Camunda Cloud, or Camunda 8, is kind of built for these microservices. So you can see that you have different possibilities. You either use the connectors we do have, for instance, REST ones, or you can use microservice apps, which then do have implemented a ZB client, which then connect right away to the ZB gateway via gRPC, and then distribute kind of the task or pick out work from the brokers, which are then used as the distributed workflow engine, kind of. Going further, we also have the possibility to attach, for instance, event bus or messaging systems. So still the limits are, or basically there are no limits, whatever you can connect to it should work. And there are also some blog posts about this. So just as a reminder, you will get these slides afterwards. So I do have a link for sharing them for you, and then you can access them pretty easily. Cool. Yeah, to continue with the architecture, and what you've previously seen is that our ZB cluster is basically exporting or stream exporting all the information to Elasticsearch. And this is then going to be propagated to operate taskless and optimized. That's kind of how it looks like. And best it runs, of course, in Kubernetes. We've developed it cloud natively for this. So it might not be a good idea to run this locally on Docker and expect some high throughput numbers. It really does need the power Kubernetes does provide there. Yeah. Continuing and going over to the SaaS architecture, because sometimes that's also quite beneficial to take a look on how this is done. We do have now some Cloudflare and Nginx upfront, and there are our Camunda cloud clusters we've seen previously. And besides, there's still identity access managements around it, the Camunda Cloud Console, which we'll see later on, and of course, some other services for really infrastructure monitoring. So that's how we set it up in our own SaaS software. And I would expect that you would come up with something similar if you would run it on premise. But on premise, or talking about on premise, is of course these Helm charts are important. So that's what's going to be by default deployed or installed when you're going to choose the official ones. So ZB containing or also coming up with the ZB gateway, task list, operate, optimize, identity, as well as Keycloak containing another Postgres database and Elasticsearch. So these are the components which are then going to be deployed via the Helm charts we do have. And there's also some guides about this available already. Yeah. Scaling ZB, that's of course also quite interesting to take a look at, because we do have like these multiple brokers, and every broker does contain such kind of partitions. So the client would typically then send, for instance, a request to the ZB partition, to the leader. And yeah, before the petitioner can actually work on things, all the data needs to be replicated to the majority of ZB followers or of the following partitions to really have this failover securities. That, for instance, if the ZB leader goes down, that we still don't lose any data if anything else would happen. But once that is done, the stream processor picks up an event in this queue and simply works on it, persists it into the local state. And once that's done, it's going to be then sent back to the client, right? Great. To just show you how the replication and failover thing is handled, we do have here like 5 nodes. So a ZB cluster containing 5 brokers. And you can see node 1 is kind of the leader because it has 0 leader up front, and all the others do have like 1, 2, 3 or more leaders. So in case our leader is actually going down, we would select kind of the next one as a follower. So that's how it simply works. So they are all in the queue, and when one goes down, it continues. We do have like the replication factor of 3 there. Great. Now, last but not least, about the first portion, we are going about to talk about Camunda APIs. So we have the gRPC one, the GraphQL one, and 2 REST ones. So you would typically use the gRPC API in order to start and work on process instances and to deploy resources, whereas you would use the taskless GraphQL API to get and work on user tasks, to build your own task list, so on and so forth. Operate does provide some kind of history API, which is good in order to fetch historic information like variables, so on and so forth. And of course, the console, if you want to provision, delete, or get clusters, is also has its own API. Yeah, here's some information or some examples like how a mutation looks like in GraphQL. I thought this would be beneficial to see. Oops. So to claim a task, you need to provide an ID. You can set an assignee. And yeah, basically, you are then going to get a result there back also. And of course, the benefit is that, one moment, please.
Thomas
Okay.
is multitasking.
Sorry. They are going to throw me out here, which is a bit of a pity. That shouldn't have happened. They promised that I can stay till 8. Apparently not, but I can finish up this slide in some minutes, or this first part, and then I will be back in 5 minutes after running out here. So yeah, GraphQL, the benefit is that it provides a single point of entry, and it solves the problem of REST that it's underfetching or overfetching, either creating too much or too less information. So you need to make more calls. And yeah, if you do want to get familiar with GraphQL, there's also a blog post about it, and we do have defined schema documentation. So the schema documentation simply also clarifies for you what kind of mutations or queries are possible overall. So yeah, there are some informations or some examples about the Operate REST API and the CBA gRPC one. We're going to take a look on the clients later on, because that's, I think, the most interesting one, and you could easily generate yourself a gRPC client as well. Yeah, great. That was already the first one, and now I'm going to quickly disappear, go outside, and then I will join back again. Sorry for that. It wasn't planned.
It's all right. It's all right. We understand. Let me just double check. And so far, Florent and Olivier, so far so good. I wanted to double check on what you have heard so far around task list, because I know you guys mentioned that, you know, it's not going away. C7 is actually not going away anytime soon, but the change in task lists in C8 is kind of a, for customers that are not paying in C8, unfortunately, it becomes a paying a feature. How do you feel about that?
In our case, we have to confirm, but from what he answered, it seemed that the notion of the user task will still be there. It's just that it will not be undone. And in our case, we already kind of embedded the usage of Form.io as a form builder and as a form renderer. So we will have to see how it goes with the new APIs. But if the notion of the user task is still there, and then when we can add the elements that we are using, it might be not that much to continue to have that. For the Operate, it would be a bit different, because we are still relying on Cockpit for active process support. So that part will be probably a difference. We will have to see also in the license if they are actually choosing to have like Operate but not task list, or we'll have to see. And as we are using it for a lot of users, we'll have to see how it goes for the licensing.
Yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, Operate is not included. Olivier, keep me straight here. Operate is not included in the. It's not included in the in community.
Community part.
It has never been included. Yeah.
I guess it would be like the rest is like the REST API will still be accessible, but you will not get the UI in production. You see that we can still use it in development and with Camunda run.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
think the biggest changes in community is that it's now fully featured, except that you lose some feature. If you wanted to run it in production, you will lose some features. So it's, if you were just to do Q&A and test, C8 is fully featured up until then. Now, if you have to run it in production, that's when you now start seeing missing features here and there. So that's the biggest piece.
Right.
I've seen Roger just join us. Roger, we have just lost our presenter for 2 minutes. He was in a conference room in Valencia, Spain, and he got kicked out. He's now looking for a different space for him to continue to talk. So we're hoping to reach in about 2-3 minutes.
Yes, just in case, I also have a video that he recorded just in case. So what we can do is we can hit play, and whenever he joins again, he can take it from there. I'm sure he'll be back on. He just need to move to a different room. But as I said, we were prepared, and he was very, very prepared. So give me a moment while I share my screen, including sound. So I'll share. Share sound, here it is. Okay. So I will hit the play and just give me thumbs up, Patricia or Olivier, that everything sounds okay. Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Thanks for listening to the first portion, and now we are going to the second one, which is all about how to create an executable process with Camunda 8. So we'll take a look on predefined showcase. We'll talk about what's actually needed to create such executable model. How does the tool really feel and look like? What do you need to consider when modeling these? And without any further ado, we can get started right away. So we'll design a process with map model. Of course, we will then implement some client or take a look at some implementations. And last but not least, of course, running the process is always very important. So we'll do that and take a look into operate task list and optimize by doing so. Cool. So now it's basically demo time.
And with that very good cue, Thomas is back online. So I'm gonna hand it to him. Thank God, because we are in the middle of a thunderstorm here in Germany, and now my internet is really bad. So I'm glad that you're back, Thomas.
Now we can hear. We can hear.
Now you should hear me? Yes. Oh, wonderful. So sorry for that inconvenience. As said, I was told that I could stay there for longer, but apparently not. That was a weird experience. Nevertheless, I made it back. So as Maria already showed in the video, the next thing we are going to do is to take a look on actually Camunda 8 itself, to work with it to get used to the look and feel. So let me quickly share my whole screen so we are all on the same page again. Let me know if you don't understand anything very well. Then I try to make it possible. So the use case we are going to take a look at is the Camundankia one, and for sure some of you might be familiar with that. So it's all about creating a personal mortgage loan, and you simply can apply for some kind of account here. So in the background, you're running a customer onboarding process with Camunda. So that's basically what's going to happen here. So I can enter some details, I can enter my email, and then I simply can send out the request here. So having done so, a process in Camunda will be triggered. And therefore, I would now go over to to all the tools which are provided by Camunda. But first of all, let's take a look on the process. And the perfect tool to open up is the web modeler. So just for you to know, when you ever go to the Camunda Cloud Console, there's the modeler up here. So you just click it, and then you're redirected to this Cavimo lookalike interface. For now, I do have created a project right here. You can invite collaborators here, and you can create BPMN diagrams, DMN diagrams, as well as forms. So let's take a look at the BPMN one. And the BPMN one is not that complex. It does contain certain elements. So for instance, we do have service task here in order to retrieve a credit score from a third-party system. We do have a DMN table here in order to check whether there's a risk in the application, a moderate one, or yeah, basically no one. And depending on that, we are either going to deliver the confirmation, send the confirmation, or reject it, right? Up here, we do have, once again, the service task, these external systems. And yeah, next to it, there's a new connector, a Centric template connector, as you can see. So there are various properties configured in order to send mail via SendGrid. But of course, that's kind of neat because you don't need to take care about service implementation, which then simply connects to an SMTP server to send out a message. Whenever like we do run in this moderate risk path down here, we need to decide manually on the risk. So this is a typical kind of task for the task list, where then a user actually decides whether the application is going to be accepted or declined. Of course, after 2 days, if something really goes wrong, if the application has been overseen, there will be an escalation to the supervisor of this person in order to then accelerate the decision. So far, so good. So that's what the process does. And as you might see, like the major difference between Cavimo and that tool is the property panel. You can though still leave comments. So you still have the possibility to switch to comments, tag people, and share information and discuss things for the model elements, right? Great. Another key thing here is the token simulation, and that's what I do really like. So whenever you are unsure about what the hell have you modeled right now, and is this really running, you can try out. So you can just send out a token, which will then visualize which path a certain process instance would take, and to see whether this is really what you would have expected. So just having mentioned it, it's now right away integrated in here, and that's for sure also a nice thing to have. Great. Other features of Cavimo are basically the milestone of Camunda, the web modeler. Sorry, now I'm getting all stumbled. The web modeler are, for instance, the history, the milestone history feature, where you can see how the process has changed over time, and you can always restore, for instance, older version. So, for instance, let's just restore this one, and yeah, now we do have another escalation path down here, which can or could have been easily added. Cool. Other possibilities from the web modeler is to deploy and start process instances right away from here, which is great for testing purposes. And of course, you can model DMN and forms as well. So let's take a look on how I have created a form for that user task. So that's kind of the Camunda form, which is a JSON representation. And going back to the custom onboarding project, you can see like right here, there is a form. And it's more or less some kind of drag and drop right here. So I can add the application number, enter or reference to key. I have the applicant here, so on and so forth. And in the end, of course, I need to improve this. So that's kind of the possibilities which are given at the moment by forms. And in the end, it's all serialized in JSON. So I can take a look on how this is represented. And yeah, you can also make use of milestones for these forms in particular. Great. DMN is another thing which is of course supported, so you can model decisions or even more complex decision trees. By just opening up, for instance, that table right here, you can see various input parameters, and based on them, you're then going to decide for a certain risk and the risk level. Great. once having modeled everything and deployed everything to the actual ZB cluster, it's now time to take a look on how this looks like. So we have now talked about basically the modeler. We have seen the Centric connector, and we have seen forms. And next up is the workflow engine, decision engine, task list, and operate. So of course, we cannot look right away into these engines. That doesn't work that way, but we can open up task list and operate. So first of all, let's take a look on how operate looks like and how you would get there. So when you would sign up for the free trial or 30-day free trial of this cloud plan, you can go to clusters usually. Now it does load for a while. Hello. Here we go. So we do have the clusters. I have now 2 separate ones, and I can step into the demo one, and there I do have all my applications. So what I wanted to do is up to our launch operate, and that's kind of the landing page for my operate tool, which lets me see how many process instances are running in total, what processes are actually deployed, and what incidents did occur. And of course, for our interest is now the custom onboarding one right here. Okay. And you can see there are 3 instances running in that at the moment. 2 are waiting for clerk to decide on the application. Another one, we are needing to accelerate the decision. And there's 1 incident down here where we want to send the rejection. Okay. Let's maybe take a look on those 2 which are here. So we can open them up. We can see the path they have been coming from. We can take a look on all the variables, and of course they are also changeable in that tool or in that view. And it's also interesting to take a look on what has happened in the DMN table. So besides of only taking a look what has happened to this to processes, you can also open up this decision tab, and there you can see how or why a certain DMN table has been processed the way they are. So that one, for instance, didn't even match. Maybe let's check another one. Oh yeah, right here you can see that 2 rules actually have been thrown. So the applicant was for sure under 30 years old and self-employed, going for the premium package, and additionally had a bad credit score. So that's for sure a very yellow one. And kind of this visibility is provided by the operate tool. Great. Going back. We can now also take a look on how this looks like in the task list. So we do have our task open to decide on the application. So that's the form we have designed before. I can, similar to Camunda, claim this, and then I need to either approve it or decline it. We are in a good mood right now, so I can complete the task for now. Great. And that should lead to the process, hopefully finish. So let's see. Yeah, we are now actually sending out the confirmation at that moment. And sooner or later, I should receive an email. As far as I can tell, I just have. So yeah, there's one from Camunda, which tells, hey, Thomas, welcome to Camunda. You now have a premium account, which is awesome. So as you can see, the process has run through without any big problems. But in case big problems occur, you do have these incidents, which are visible right here, for instance. And you can inspect it right away. You can see what has happened. There's an error message. And depending on that error message, you can send, for instance, change variables and retry to make sure that the long-running task or the process in the end does terminate. If you're coming up from Camunda 7, you might wonder, is there some kind of process instance migration or modification? That's on our radar, but at the moment it's not yet possible. And most likely we are going to implement this kind of feature in an iterative fashion. So we are going to slowly start with some modifications, and then we are trying to support the migration. Awesome. What I've now left out is how you actually write some code, which then connects to Camunda or to the ZB cluster. And therefore, let me quickly open up IntelliJ, because I do have paired project. So the custom onboarding showcase, it's opened up. And it's Java one, it's a Spring Boot one. So as said, we are quite language agnostic. So you could also do something similar with .NET, Python, Go, you name it. So the possibilities are endless. Since it's GSBC, you can just easily generate a client for most modern languages. I think all of you can most likely read Java. It's not too complicated. And to get started, we do need to include a dependency. So Camunda, or our community, has built some community dependencies which can be used in order to really make the connection very easy. For instance, Spring ZB. Just to have shown you, we do have right here a GitHub repository for this. And there are examples. There's a getting started guide, so you should find yourself again and know how to actually deal with it. So it's a good guide, good documentation, so I'm sure you are not lost in there. But now let me quickly show you how this is actually done in here. So we included this dependency in our POM file, and the next thing we need to do is actually to go over to our custom onboarding, to our main class, and add the enable ZB client annotation. And by having done so, we can now also deploy some resources on start of that Spring Boot application, which is quite nice to have. When writing some kind of external task workers, going quickly back to our model right here in the web modeler, to the custom onboarding one, you do see, for instance, while checking the get credit score task, that we have defined like this task definition, and the type is similar to what you have designed for the external task pattern, or how you would set a topic or define a topic for Kafka. Something similar like this can this be seen. And what we are now doing in our work and calculate score worker is actually to simply subscribe to this type calculate score. So we do have another at ZB worker annotation would subscribe to the score, and we can set some further parameters to, for instance, how to complete this right here. Great. Having done so, we do have basically a plain method which can be used as you would like. So you can run any kind of code in there. You can make any call to whatever system you like. And on return, we are then going to complete this task and pass back the results we have basically submitted right here. And yeah, that's already most of the magic you need to do. Of course, in the application YAML, it would be great if you would then set some ZB client secrets so you can actually connect to your cluster in a secure fashion. But once that has done, you're pretty good to go, and you can spin it up and try it out right away. Yeah, so great. This has been an overview now of those first two things. And yeah, next up, there's Optimize, but apparently I'm once again need to leave even this outside area, which is terrible. So maybe Maria, I'm not sure how the thunderstorm is going on, but maybe you do find the part where I'm going to talk a bit about Optimize. In the meantime, I would try my best to just get out here and then find some seating area in order to tune back in to answer your questions. Sorry.
No problem. I am
right
looking
back
into it as we speak. So I have my camera off simply because, as I said, there is a thunderstorm and I don't want to take anything away from this. And I'm scrolling through the video because we had, it was just done today in the morning. There's no there's no markers. So give me a second and I'll start sharing. I'm so sorry for this. These are the great things about going live, right? You never know what can happen. So give me a second. Give me a moment. Okay. Ah. Okay, here it is. Hmm.
To make the migration up and running. Great.
You can hear?
Last but not least, going back to our console, I just wanted to show you how the clusters are looking like and how you can access the tools. Recollect that I haven't shown you that one. So being in the console, you can check out your clusters. Now, it seems like my internet is very unstable once again, which is weird. Okay. Let's open up another instance of console. Maybe now it works better. Oh yeah, here we go. So now we've opened up the console finally. We are working in the demo cluster, so I can open this up. And as you can see, you do have all the applications visible right here. You can define connector settings, you can set some alerts in here, and access all the applications we've already seen. Last but not least, let's go over to Optimize. And Optimize is the tool for creating these fancy dashboards and reports, as you might already know. And that's now only one kind of spin away, so you do not need to do a lot. In order to access it, you can easily create a new collection, add data sources which are already available in Camunda Cloud or in Camunda in the SaaS offerings. So all processes you have deployed are now accessible here. And from that on, you can just create a collection and define basically reports or dashboards. There are predefined templates you can make use of. So, for instance, the custom onboarding one we want to take a look at. And having done so, you can, for instance, see how long does it take on average to run the process, where are the most long-lasting steps, how often is each step run, so on and so forth. So all the information is contained in here you want to analyze, and you need to incrementally then improve your process. Cool. That's most I wanted to show to you right now. So going back to my fancy PowerPoint slides, I do have also in the slide deck some useful links for you to get started. So yeah, feel free to do so. There's this Camunda showcase repository you can try out, which is available on GitHub. We do have the Camunda Platform 8 documentation, which does have some good content there, and our slides we've talked about, and of course the sign-up page for the trial, because you can test out Camunda 8 30 days long for free, or you just host it locally via Kind or on your GCP with our Helm charts, and then you can run it in a non-production usage environment for free, which might also be a thing you want to consider. Cool. Once again, thanks everyone for listening. It's been a pleasure talking here. I had a lot of fun, even though I now only re-record myself. So yeah, thanks a lot for listening, and hopefully you liked it. I may be available for questions right after this, so stay tuned, and I'm looking forward for the nice discussions. See you around. Bye.
Well, unfortunately, Thomas is back, I think. Oh,
luckily.
God, thank you.
I'm back. I made it.
Good.
I had some time to listen to myself. Yeah. I think I will never go to Spain again, ever. So sorry about this. But yeah, I'm back, so I'm happy to take any further questions. Yeah, so let's talk about Camunda 8. Thoughts about yourselves. Is there anything you think is currently missing for you? Because that's also quite important for us to get feedback from you to further pass on to product management. So yeah, happy to have a chat with you all.
Yeah. And so this is an open now general Q&A. Florent, Olivier, Roger, any feedback so far? Any items that you've seen that kind of puzzle you on C8 that you're comparing with C7 and saying, I don't know how this will work in my environment? Feedbacks are welcome. Going once.
So yes, so far it's interesting. Like I don't know if I mentioned before, but I'm fairly new to all this, maybe 3 months. So it's mostly just discoveries for me. Not really able to compare all the new features and stuff. So
yeah. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. It will take some time.
Indeed.
Roger, what about you? Roger on mute. Going once. Going twice. Maria, take it away on community updates.
I will. So I'm gonna be moving to the slides. And well, we want to share that as always, we have the developer newsletter that goes out every month with tons of information from the community, which is from the events that we're having to community contributions, releases, you name it. And it's always nice to see what the community is up to. So it goes out every month, and we'd love to see you receive it. Next, we want to tell you about the Camunda Question Corner that is going out every other month, the last Thursday of each month. The next one is on June 30th. And on this special episode, we're going to have Felix Müller, the director of product management, which he will also be talking about Camunda 8, the roadmap, what's coming up. He'll probably be discussing the feedback that we've received over the last couple of months since the launch on April, and how we are incorporating your feedback, right? Because one thing we love to do in Camunda is hear your feedback and incorporate it. As Thomas said repeatedly during the session, we take your feedback at heart and try to act on it. If sometimes we'll be able to do it straight away, and sometimes it might take us a little longer, but we definitely want to have those conversations with you. So we've launched this product survey, and it really doesn't take more than 2 minutes. So anytime that you want to leave us your sorrows or your successes with Camunda, this is a good moment to do so. And just to let you know that we're also opening up the call for papers for Camunda Con, which will be on October. And we couldn't be happier because it's gonna be hybrid, which means if you are near Berlin, we will be more than thrilled to meet face-to-face for finally an in-person event, which, as we all know, we're all just eager to meet in person. Hopefully, we will have a better internet connection than you're having there, Thomas. I know KubeCon is not responsible for that, because in fact, you had very good connection at the booth, but we'll make sure that this doesn't happen, and we'll have tons of fun, and we're really looking forward to that. So again, if you have something interesting that you think could be part of the agenda, just drop us your suggestion. The cover papers are, as I said, they're open already, or write to us to community@camunda.com. If you want some support from our side, if you want Thomas or some of the other developer advocates to review whatever you want to submit with a super strong connection, and we can talk about it. So heading it over to you, Patricia, to close the session.
Awesome. So thank you so very much, all of you guys, for your time. I know we've had some technical issues. Usually spring sessions and early spring meetings are usually less crowded because the weather is getting nicer, so everybody's out, especially during lunchtime. So we appreciate you taking the time to sit with us. We are potentially working on a session coming in July. And I'm going to be trying to gather some surveys here and there if we can meet in person, like a nice 5 à 7, comme on les fait à Montréal, and bring one of the developer in town and have a kind of a fun an hour and a half where we could have drinks and talk about Camunda in a nicer environment where we can meet face to face, and we'll see if that's even possible. But for sure, we will be able to meet again in the fall. With great content, because we're going to be preparing for CamundaCon, and there's we would have gathered much more feedback about C8, and we will be able to share some of the progress about new stuff and new features that are being released in the fall. And as always, if there is any questions, please feel free to send them over to community@camunda.com. I believe there was a question. You can now send your nonverbal feedback. Who was that? Olivier, was that you asking a question?
Yes, I wanted to make sure that we answer the question from Olivier and Roger Orlando. I know there are questions going on in the chat, so Pierre.
All right, so let me, yeah, sorry if I missed them, just real quick. I believe Pierre has taken 2 of them.
Yes, just wanted to make sure that we answer the question from Olivier and Florent.
Okay, thanks, community. Okay, thanks. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. I believe Pierre-Yves has answered. Olivier, have we answered all your questions? I'm talking to Olivier A.
Yeah, so far, so I would have to see next to read, but it was either presented or replied. So yeah, it's good so far. Anyway, we will probably take some proof of concept with the C8 in premise.
Yeah, you can download a trial online, definitely. And if you needed any guidance, please feel free to either drop an email to community or reach out to myself, and or Pierre-Yves will be more than happy to assist.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
Thank you. You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.